Welcome back to You Can't Make This Shit Up in the Central Florida Twilight Zone. I'm Kellen. That's David. Why is it the Twilight Zone? Because in the past, I've been very vocal about my dissatisfaction with the leadership in this state. But today, I'm pretty enthused about it. David, what am I talking about? Your mic is off, Goofy.
I was on mute. All right. So, Florida lawmakers are considering regulations on AI, focusing on its use in media, political ads, and state agencies, with proposals for disclaimers in AI generated content and liability for misuse, alongside forming a council for AI oversight and ethics. Senate Bill 850 by Senator Nick DiCelli targets generative AI and political ads, requiring a disclaimer for content created or partly created by AI. This aims to maintain election integrity. Here we go again, by curbing misleading or fabricated information. Let's go. All right,
I
Kelly,
like
you
to,
like this? I don't.
yeah, okay. Well, here's the thing. I like to think that the DeSantis campaign itself was the inspiration for this because of the Dr. Fauci debacles. Because it was such a mess that people were like, "Wait, Donald Trump and Dr. Fauci are they like in cahoots?" No, they were not. Not
Right,
really.
right. Yes, yes.
And so the DeSantis campaign, you know, has been mostly an educational experience above all else, and it educated us on what the future can look like. That is, the future can look very grim. That AI content can take over, and it is very easy, and it is already too easy to spread misinformation online already. And
Yeah,
in the future, it's going to happen more and more and more when the generative AI actually gets to a point where it's harder to distinguish. Right now, it's
true.
not too hard to distinguish because people have like 10 fingers. That's a pretty dead giveaway.
Wait,
Um,
we do have 10 fingers, don't we?
I mean per hand, David, per
Oh,
hand.
per hand. Okay.
Yeah, people have like they have like the fan fingers.
Okay, okay,
And and it is worth noting this law is not going to be that enforceable. I'm gonna pour the cold water. It's not going to be that enforceable because it is a state law, not a
correct,
federal law.
correct.
I think the broad purpose of this is to set an agenda. Hopefully, the way I see it is because
W-
a lot of big federal legislation begins as state legislation first. It's something that was done in a state that the citizens were a big fan of. So the party who put that legislation in place decides to pay it up. More states begin to adopt it, and maybe eventually a federal candidate, a presidential candidate, senator candidate, whatever, takes notice and looks into it. I think that's the broader picture here, and I think only a bill on the federal level can be truly effective. But but
I think
AI
we
has
do.
been as rough as AI is right now. As much as you can tell an AI voice is different from the real voice, as much as you can tell an image is different from the real image, it's evolving very, very, very fast. So it is important, and while it is important to be pro progress, it's also important to be cautious, to be proactive. Is this law enforceable? No. Is it proactive? Mostly.
Right.
But
And,
what's your beef with it, David? I'm
well,
curious.
you kind of took the steam out of my beef because, again, state legislation versus federal legislation. I believe federal legislation is needed, some type of guidance at the federal level to prevent the deep fakes, to prevent misinformation. We don't need that. AI has generative, generative,
Generative.
generative. Thank you. AI is phenomenal. Hey, just
Oh,
ask my replica, avatar. Just kidding. I don't have one yet. Anyway, no, but it's amazing, and from creating speeches to creating images. It is changing the way that here in the political space that we put out our messaging. Uh, and what they're advocating, they meaning the folks in Tallahassee, the legislators are advocating it's a little bit too much for the state level. However, does it start the conversation? Yes, it does start the conversation about some type of guidelines. However, um, I can, a disclaimer, sure, especially if it's a video or audio
Yeah.
clip that's being used. I can understand having a disclaimer that is very clear, concise, and the viewer or listener understands that this was created by generative AI.
Yeah.
So, so
I think a mandatory watermark for videos of people, for deepfakes, for even, and I think for a lot of political messaging, a mandatory watermark I think should be the federal standard. If we can get, because if you have a disclaimer at the beginning, somebody's out there is going to edit that beginning out and post it illegally. Somebody's going to do it, and the
mhm.
misinformation will get spread anyways. I
and,
think,
and And a lot of our legislators, they really don't understand this stuff, like they don't understand the blockchain. And I think that before any type of law is passed, maybe they need to be educated on these tools also.
yeah, it's, if there's one reason why we need younger people in government, seriously, just run. If you want to run, you don't have to sit on the sidelines. You can just run for office. Nobody will think any less of you. In fact, they will respect the hell out of it probably.
Yes.
Because
Oh,
because
yes.
because the problem is Congress people, senators, executives, these people are busy. They're concerned about the economy. They're concerned about our defense. They're concerned about incoming threats. They're concerned about every other domestic policy under the sun. And so often they don't hang around the internet like you or I. They're not involved with this space like you or I. This A lot of them still use old phones, you know. Some of them still have flip phones, for God's sake. It's
I,
because
I'm sorry, our Democratic nominee for House District 35 in the special election, he was just recently using a an older phone that he could not receive his emails on, and he was given the phone to be able to access his emails. And so when you mentioned that, it just kind of brought to mind that
oh,
yeah,
this
a
is
lot of our representatives here in Central Florida are of an older generation and may not connect with a lot of what we're talking about in regards to AI, VR, augmented reality, things like that. The
yeah,
blockchain.
because when people like me are on the sideline watching the first AI generated content come by. We're seeing that first when people like I see that first wave come out. We see it very crude. We see it very rough, and it's easy for us to see how much it's progressing, how much bigger it's becoming, how much more prevalent it's becoming, what the potential issues are with it. What do people already use it for? What will people use it for? But if you're not dialed in to the internet, the home of misinformation itself, it's harder to regulate it. If you're not dialed into technology, it's harder to regulate technology. It just is. And the people that are going to provide the information to you are going to be the lobbyists. Lobbyists are given the title of, political boogeyman. But really what lobbyists do is they want to convey information to legislators. They want to tell them, this is a really troubling issue, or no, this is not as big an issue as people say it is. And they give reasons why. The people that they get a lot of their information from are company lobbyists. A lot of the information they're going to be receiving are from those lobbyists. It's not going to be firsthand. So they're always lagging behind. They can't stay up to date. Or they can, but the current members are struggling.
Right, to take this further, the Democrats can return to some prominence if they introduce more legislation like this particular issue, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Introduce more legislation that would get bipartisan support. and would pass some forward thinking legislation that doesn't, focus on these cultural issues or social issues, but things that will make our lives that much easier, more informed, excuse me, more useful, and perhaps slowly, Democrats could be uh, more of a presence legislatively in Tallahassee than they are now. They're going to be on the losing end of most of their legislation anyhow. So why not move away? Not completely away. Understand me? Not completely away, but start introducing legislation that advances the causes. Let me check that. Advances kitchen table issues
Yeah.
that affects our pocketbooks and will increase the quality of life.
Yeah. I mean, that would be the good thing to do, which is why it's not what's going to happen. But no, the real reason is because I think a lot of Democrats, wow, I think a lot of Democrats are concerned of actually proposing, bipartisan legislation when the Republicans hold the majority. Because I think they're worried that the Republicans are going to take all the credit. Or even worse, in their eyes, not mine, even worse, the people are going to give the Republicans credit, even if the Democrats propose it. Unfortunately, it has become such a game of perception, like who takes credit for what, that I don't think a Democrat minority is going to introduce such good legislation. I think if they were to introduce it, they would do it when they would have the majority, because that way, they can keep those smaller Republicans from taking credit for their great legislation. And I think that's the same thing's going to happen with Republicans. They don't like to propose their best legislation while they're in the minority, even if it would pass. Even if it would pass. So that's just my thoughts about it.
I see your point. I like it.
Blood
Excuse
sport. Blood
me.
sport.
It is. It is. Um, i- if Democrats can move some legislation that typically they would not be behind, like what this legislation in regards to AI governance, it would be good for the party. It would be good for the state. Again, this type of legislation, I think, should be addressed at the federal level for some
It's
consistency's sake.
unenforceable.
Yeah. Um, but we'll see. I enjoy using AI in the work
Oh
that
yeah.
I do. I am just on the cusp of its potential. Hopefully, we'll be tapping into more of AI and AR and VR and the blockchain moving forward in many of our projects. However, we want you to tap that like button, and we want you to comment, and we would like for you to spread the word about our content. We work hard to bring this together. I want to thank John DeMaria, our producer of Seventh Legion Multimedia, for helping us put together our podcast since day one. And we're going to keep an eye on this too, this legislation.
Yeah.
Um, AI in the political space is definitely being used. I can tell you that, and I see a space for it.
Yeah.
But again, I think Kellen and I are in agreement on this particular topic.
Yeah. And by the way, we have been AI generated this whole time. We are not the real David Washington and Kellen Clark. I'm just kidding. You would be able to tell. You would be able to tell. Um, but one day, who knows? Who
We'll
knows?
do
Maybe
an AI
who
generated,
knows? Maybe one day an
show.
AI version of me will host a podcast, and I will discover that, and I will discover it because I didn't make it myself. You never know. Um, but keep an eye out. Remember that state laws like this are unenforceable, but they can hopefully pay it forward, push the ideas forward. And I hope that it finally makes it to Congress, because the recent legislation that's been proposed on tech on both sides has been weak. With
Yes,
with Republicans trying to repeal protections to websites that desperately need it, and Democrats proposing the God Awful Restrict Act. We need better legislation like this, and I hope that the Congress, whichever side it is, takes notice.
indeed. And
With that,
Kevin, one more thing. One more thing. I have a list of AI tools and resources that I've been sitting on for a while because of the holidays, but I definitely will share it with you and the rest of the team.
oh, I'm
That
excited.
would make our work a little bit more efficient and that much better. So hopefully we'll be able to implement these tools and it'll show in our content. So I can't
Yeah,
wait to share.
I already love using AI tools for editing. It makes it so much easier now. Like the potential you can do. It's exciting time, but we also need to temper it a little bit. Know that not every actor will be good. Anyways, have a great day, everybody. Have a nice, clean, natural day, not generated by AI, and we'll see you next time.
Take